Chaos. Can you relate to chaos? Do you ever have chaos in your life? You don't have chaos in your life? You don't? Do you ever have like everything smooth in your life?
By and large.
By and large. Okay. This is the first person I've ever met in my whole life, Chuck. God bless you. A person who everything keeps going right. Toyota. Isn't that their line? Wasn't that Toyota's like line? I remember in South Africa, that was the ads. Everything keeps going right, Toyota. No, really, I don't think I know any person in the world that has everything going right, except for you.
Well, there's a difference between everything going right and chaos.
What does chaos mean? Chaos means disorder. Chaos means where... Fauda, yeah. Fauda means chaos, actually, yeah. So, now chaos doesn't necessarily mean that, that your living room is a mess. It means that your heart is a mess because your feelings are confused. Or your brain is a mess because you've been conditioned to believe or to perceive things because of various experiences. Welcome to Worldwide Wisdom as we're taking on Mitzvasa, Mishetishka, HaChama. This is a Hasidic discourse of Hanukkah delivered in 1979, I think it was, by the Rebbe, and we're inching our way through this life-changing, transformational mimer, this discourse, which today is going to talk about how to face chaos in your life. The concept of chaos is not a mistake. See, this is a transitional, transformational idea in Jewish mysticism. I think that many people think that chaos is a situation which needs to be removed. But Chassidus teaches us that chaos is actually the default setting of our existence. I had someone talking to me the other day about her parents, and she told me that her parents are the kind of people that should never have had children. That's what she said. She said there were Holocaust survivors that were so incredibly traumatized by the experiences of the Holocaust that they could not raise her. She was put into an orphanage until about 11 years old. Can you imagine coming out of an orphanage at 11 years old, being put there by your own parents, and then getting to know your parents?
Well, that's awful.
Awful, just an awful situation. And she struggled with it. She was crying.
Oh, of course.
Why would God do that to me? But it's the Hasidic teachings of mysticism, Jewish mysticism, that teach us that when God created the world, there was a world that existed before our own. It was the world of Tohu, before the world of Tikun. I touched on this concept briefly earlier in a previous class, but we'll touch on it again because it's such a big concept that it's necessary to expand on. What happened was that God created a world and it exploded. So he created our world. That's the short version. Why is that? Is that because God was playing scientific experiments and beam bam blew up? So let's try it again. It wasn't that God did that, because if that was the case, first of all, God is almighty and all-knowing and all-powerful. God doesn't make mistakes. Why would God have created a world only for it to explode? What happened was that God created such a world where the intensity, where the ideology, where the vision was too big for the plan.
Wouldn't he have known that?
Hang on a second. Of course. So I just asked that question. So in other words, like let's say somebody starts a business, and I think I gave the example. They said they're gonna print 25 million copies of their book. Great. Sounds amazing. 25 million copies of their book. Problem is I don't have a book. Problem is I don't know what to write. I don't even know how to write. Doesn't matter. I got a plan. What's gonna happen to such a person? Right, when he goes seeking investors for his company, for his book. We're gonna sell 25 million books. What's gonna happen? Nothing's going to happen. It's going to fall flat. It's going to go over like a lead balloon because nobody's going to be interested, and he's going to burn out because there's all hats and no cattle, right? That's what happened in the world of Tohu. The lights were too intense for the vessels. It was chaos. On the flip side, when you create the world of Tikkun, which is the subsequent world, here God says, okay, there's a plan, there's training, there's a business operational model, there's SOPs, right? And now we're going to try to make them profitable. Great. It's like Facebook. Remember when Facebook became a company? I think what was it? If iPhone was a person, he'd just be 14 years old today. Think about that. He wouldn't be of drinking age even. It's just think about how the world has changed in the past decade or so, right? So Facebook at one point was a company that had, I think, 300 million or something users, but they weren't making any money. Do you remember that point? When Mark Zuckerberg and he decided that we had to have a meeting, they're like, okay, now we're going to try to figure out how we're going to make money. And what they did is that in one day, they made like $1 billion because they had so many users and they just figured out by turning on ads or something, they just, everything went on. So here you had the vessel fully operational. We didn't have a plan. We didn't know what we were doing, but they had the plan. I guess they didn't have the profit, right?
They had the plan, but they didn't have the total execution of that plan.
Right. So when they decided to engage the plan, they were like, okay, ready to go. Right? So that's the world of tikkun, which is the world of order. It's the world of order. Why would God have created it? You asked the question. Why would God have done it in such a way? Why would he have made a mistake? Does God make mistakes? God doesn't make mistakes. The reason is because God wanted to create a situation so that we would be able to correct it. We were placed into this world in order to take the tohu and channel it into tikkun. Let me give you an example. So after Passover on the 28th of Nisan, in the year 1991, I think it was, the Rebbe came out with a very, very disturbing announcement. He said, I've done everything I can to bring Mashiach, and he's not here yet. I don't understand why Mashiach is not here. If you would have wanted it enough, you would have been here. If I had 10 people that truly wanted Mashiach to come, we would be here already. Obviously, we don't have that. Do everything in your power. And then the Rebbe said like this: use the lights of Tohu in the vessels of Tikkun. That's what he said. Use the lights of Tohu and channel them into the vessels of Tikkun. In the world of Tohu, chaos, what's dominant is the idea, is the light, and the vessels are recessive. In the world of Tikkun, it's the other way around. The vessel is dominant, and the lights are recessive. So what you want to do is you don't want to cancel Tohu. You don't want to say that chaos is bad. You want to say chaos is good. I want to take the vision of 25 million books, and I want to find a writer that's talented enough to be able to make that happen. And now you got a shidduch, right? Now you got a plan. If you can find a Tony Robbins or a J.K. Rowling, and you can take that. Imagine you wanted to do that Jewish-wise, right? So you take, let's say, Tony Robbins to co-author a book with a very talented Jewish thinker, right? And now maybe you can sell 25 million books, right? Yeah, you do something like that, right? So now what you're doing is that you're channeling the lights of Tohu into the vessels of Tikkun instead of just canceling Tohu. Let's face it, Tohu is far more of an exciting world. Tikkun is much more boring. You have people that are, I'm sure you guys businessmen, you can help me here, that there's different kinds of business, of entrepreneurs. I think there's managers and there's visionaries. Is that right? Mm-hmm. There are people that are good at managing the business.
And then the manager helps.
Right, so you need the visionary who's the dreamer. Right. But the dreamer is kind of removed a little bit from reality. Right. It doesn't have his feet on the ground necessarily. The visionary needs a manager who's able to help them execute, right? What happens if you have two people in a marriage, let's say, that are both, creative visionaries? What happens to their relationship? Nothing gets done, right?
It might work for them.
What?
In law firms, they call them finders,
minders
and grinders.
Wow, I love that expression. Finders, minders, and grinders. Explain that to me. So finders.
People bring in the business. People who can't bring business in,
but they manage the accounts. That's the minders.
Right. And then the grinders are the ones who sit there
in the back office, they're crunching the numbers.
Exactly. But they're the same thing in business.
Wow, finders, minders, and grinders. Okay, so the finders, let's talk about the finders a second. The finders of the accounting or the law firm, they don't really know much about accounting or law. Their job is to schmooze. They're the schmoozers. They're going to hang out in the bars. They're going to be taking people out to golf courses, right? Nothing to do with the actual law, but if the guy likes them, then they'll be able to bring them into the firm and assign them to a minder,
Right.
who will then assign them to a grinder, a group of grinders to get the work done in the Fortune 500 account, right? So beautiful. So you have these different energies.
The most money.
What?
Finder.
The finder makes the most money. The grinder makes the least, I'm sure,
No, the grinder makes the most.
and the grinder makes the least, right? So it's interesting. Tohu has a lot of advantages to it. Oh.
You need them all.
And if you only have a team of finders, much ado about nothing, right? If you have a team of grinders,
It's nothing to grind.
I want to give an example of this. So when you watch the World Cup soccer, it's very interesting. The World Cup soccer, there's a game out there outside of America. It's called soccer. The rest of the world plays it, right? America a little bit plays it. In America, they try to convince themselves that the world plays the game. They call it the World Championships or the World Series. The World Series. How many teams play in the World Series? I think 2 teams or 3 teams, 3 countries. There's America and Japan, I think. Maybe there's one other country that plays the baseball. Oh, it's only America. It's not even. Yeah, but how can they call it the World Series? I don't know. But there's actually a game out there which has almost all the countries in the whole entire world playing. It's called soccer. And it's very interesting when you watch the mentalities of the countries. Some countries call it football, by the way. But the mentalities of the countries that play the game is very interesting. The Italians are so exciting to watch. They're so exciting. Toby, you can help me here. The Italians, each one is like a Pavarotti. Each one is an artist, and they kick the ball and Azoy and Ahin and Aher and Zurich, and they're like performers, right?
Like Jackie Mason.
Yeah, the ball is all over the place. It's a whole entertainment. The problem is the ball doesn't land up in the goals. But it was so beautiful to watch, right? Then you watch the Germans. The Germans are boring. They're like a well-oiled machine. Boring. They pass to here, pass to there, pass back. Ahin and Zurich, ahead and ahead. Just back and forth. There's no flair. There's no finesse. There's no panache like the Italians. But guess what? That ball gets up in that net, ball after ball after ball, because they're running rings around the Italians. The Italians are still wondering about if his tie is matching his socks or something. And these guys are scoring goal after goal. It's amazing. So there's something to be said about these Italians. English also boring. The problem with the English is that they're boring, but I think the Germans are better than them. Yeah, it's interesting. You look at the various countries. And you realize like the Germans and the Swiss, they perfected the art of engineering, right? The Italians, they're good at like cooking. Food. They're good at romance, right? You try to make them work as a team.
The Germans are good at romance?
No, I said the Germans are good at engineering. The Germans make cars and watches, right? The Italians, they can make pasta and pizza.
And clothing.
Right?
And clothing.
Yeah. Well, clothing, you go to the French, maybe? Yeah. All right. So what? My point is, you look at these various countries and you have elements of Tohu and elements of Tikun. Now, nothing in God's world should be canceled. Everything in God's world needs to be nurtured in service of Hashem. So you got to take even the parts of your life that are chaotic and say the only reason why they're chaotic is because they're misdirected. The key word here is misdirected. And if you're able to, look at a child. Sometimes, how often does it happen with parenting that we define ourselves by the success of our children? People often tell me that you're only as happy as your unhappiest child. And I'm not sure if I agree with that.
I don't agree.
Because children intuitively individuate from their parents. And I think that parents need to learn to individuate from their children. Your child will not necessarily turn out to be like you. You might be a rabbi, your child might not want to be a rabbi. You might be a quintessential entrepreneur that wants to go to Ivy League. And you've put yourself through Ivy League and it was hard and you feel so accomplished. And now you're ready. You've already prepaid your child's college tuition from 4 years old. And then he tells you, actually, I want to go to yeshiva. Or actually, I want to become an artist. Or actually, I want to become a chef. Or maybe I want to become a sous chef and just help someone else run their business. And you could be like, really? Why? Right? Because we have different qualities. Each person, to be able to raise a child means to embrace the gift that God has given us, which is that you've been entrusted with a piece of God for you to nurture, not for you to brainwash. For you to nurture, not for you to control or squash.
Well, you can help focus them.
Yes, you can help
Really
focus them. You can parent them, but don't traumatize them. So when your child tells you, but I want to be an artist, but I want to be a sports player, and you say, but you're going to make more money if you do this or that or the other, maybe that's not what motivates them, right? We all have different talents and skills and gifts. And what Chassidus is teaching us is that everything is to be used in the service of God. And you don't have to fit one mold. The disorder in our lives is actually there in order for us to repair it, in order for us to fix it. We need to take all the positive elements of Tohu and channel them into the vessels of Tikkun. Once we can understand this idea, we're able to understand back in our Maimer why it is that the Hanukkah lights are lit at night, whereas the other mitzvahs, most of the mitzvahs are performed by day, especially the menorah lights, the menorah lights were lit in order to commemorate the Hanukkah lights to commemorate the menorah in the temple. The menorah was lit by day. So why is the Hanukkah lights lit by night? Because the purpose is to illuminate the darkness. That's why. And it says in the Talmud that the lighting of the Hanukkah lights is until the marketplace is free from the feet of the scavengers. So we said the word for marketplace, we explained previously, the word for marketplace can mean the highest of heights or the lowest of depths. It can mean chaos and plurality, or it can mean divine pleasure. And we explained that the reason for the paradoxical interpretation of the same term is in order to inspire us to realize that our goal is to take the chaos of plurality and to turn it into the structure of unity, of monotheism, right? To create divine pleasure. And the same thing we say over here when it comes to the fact that the Talmud says, we're about to explain this and we'll do it in the text in a moment, that when it says that you're supposed to light the Hanukkah lights until the feet of the scavengers are no longer in the marketplace. The word feet seems like a very strange expression. The feet of the scavengers are no longer in the marketplace. That's a chronological distinction. It's a time when the scavengers are no longer in the market collecting wood. But what it means, according to Chassidus, the word feet can mean, feet of scavengers can mean those people that are outcasts of society, those people that are really, the rebels, the people that are not with the program, not with the program. The word Talmudoi, scavengers, also has the same letters as rebels. Right? So it's the feet of the rebels. It's the lowest part of the rebels. It's not even the good part of the rebels. It's the lowest part of the rebels, right? So that's one interpretation of the word feet. And another interpretation of the word feet is the 3 pilgrimage festivals, which are feet. Pesach, Sukkot, Shavuos are the festivals of feet, where you're supposed to walk to Jerusalem, right? So this is not by chance that you have 2 opposite interpretations to the same word, because our goal is to transform the bad into the good, to transform the feet of the rebels into the feet of the pilgrimage festivals, to transform the chaos of Tohu into the order of Tikkun, to take your dysfunctional upbringing and turn it into a healthy relationship with your spouse. To turn the fact that your father was unable to relate to you as a mensch, the fact that your father could not give you a compliment as hard as you tried, and to transform that into a parenting model where you are able to be present for your children without patronizing them and without ignoring them. To take a childhood where you were given silent treatment by your Holocaust survivor mother, and to choose to break that pattern of violence and abuse by channeling frustration into conversation and into connection, into something called conflict intimacy. Conflict intimacy, there's 12 forms of intimacy. One of them is not just a physical intimacy. Intimacy can also be a conflict intimacy, which means when you have a fight with your wife, or a fight with your friend, or a fight with your child, to be able to be honest about the conflict and to explain and say, I think I was triggered by something based on some trauma of mine, and I was able to catch myself and identify it, and I want to humbly apologize to you for having spoken to you that way.
Nice that they can do that.
Somebody said to me that it's too late for her. She told me that it's too late for her. She's ignored her kids for too many years, and her kids hate her. She told me. I said to her, why is it too late? Why is it too late? Now that you've risen to this consciousness, you can apologize to your children right now. Right now. Say to them, I'm sorry, I was overwhelmed when you were teenagers. I was going through all sorts of garbage. I was going through stuff. Life was brutal to me, and I was not present for you when you needed me most. I'm sorry for not having been there for you when you needed me. I humbly apologize to my children, and I hope that I can make it up to you now moving forward, right? This is the transformation of Tohu into Tikun, and this is our goal. In other words, God is not being mean to you by putting you into that family. That's your mission. Let's read this in the text, all right? We're on page 231. In the previous section, the Rebbe explained the connection between the two explanations of the word shuk. Based on what we just learned, we're unable to understand the connection between the two explanations of the word regel, which means leg or foot as well. The first explanation of regel, the feet of the rebels, or the feet of the scavengers, was that it refers to the forces of the Sitra Achra, of the evil, the feet of the Talmudoi, the rebels. And the second was that it refers to the Shalosh Regalim, the three festivals of Passover, Shavuos, Pesach, and Sukkot, which literally are the 3 feet, the 3 pilgrimage festivals. We have 2 opposite interpretations to the same exact word. So when the Talmud is telling us that the lights of the Hanukkah lights are allowed to be lit, illuminated, kindled, until such time as the feet of the rebels, of the feet of the scavengers are in the marketplace, it means that you're allowed to light the lights of the Hanukkah lights until either a state of holiness, the 3 pilgrimage festivals, or a state of unholiness when you got a state of rebellion. The answer is, for the paradox, is the one has to be transformed into the other, the negative into the positive. The connection between these two seemingly opposite explanations is that the refinement and elevation of the sparks of godliness that are in exile within the forces of impurity, the klipos, the concept of bringing about an intense longing for godliness within the Talmudoi, as explained in the previous section, is done through the service of the 3 festivals of Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot. When you're able to sanctify time, when you're able to say, I'm not doing business on these days, I'm not meeting with my clients, I'm closing my email, I'm closing my office for 8 days during Pesach, and for 2 days during Shavuos, and for 8 days during Sukkot, because I have priorities, then what you're doing is that you're pledging allegiance to a higher value. And therefore, by showing that you're more important than your money, more important than your clients, more important than your influence with your friends, is your allegiance to God Almighty. What you're doing is that you're infusing holiness into the forces of plurality, the forces of chaos in your life, the forces of conflict within your life, are finding unity, are finding monotheism in your behavior. The Rebbe explains the deeper meaning of the 3 festivals. Chassidus explains that the main difference, 232, between the worlds of Tohu, which is the source of the klipos, the source of impurity, the source of the animal soul, and Tikun, the source of holiness. What's the main difference? Is that the world of Tohu, the spheres are arranged in 2 columns, while in the world of Tikun, they are arranged in 3 columns. What that means is, without getting too technical, what it means is, and I tried to elaborate on it, 2 columns means that there's me and there's you, there's conflict. It's like Democrats and Republicans, and they don't talk to each other. That's 2 columns. Democrats and Republicans. But imagine if there was a third party. Imagine, do we have a third party in America? I mean, always on the ballot, there's some other parties that I never heard of.
Libertarian.
Yeah, but libertarians are like a drop in the bucket. You know, I think Israel, they try to do that. In Israel, they have like this tiny little country and 27 different political parties, you know. Imagine if there was a party that says, we believe in God and faith, right? Let's say they got values of the Republican Party, but they also have very strong values of the Democratic Party. Like, you can be pro-Israel and you can be, I don't know, whatever, forget it. I don't want to make pro-Israel and whatever, an isolationist item. But imagine what would happen. Look at the chaos that happens when you have Democrats and Republicans. It's just 2 columns. But imagine if you had a third column, there was one that bridged them together. There was the mediating party, right? The mediating party that says, we see the strengths of both. Maybe that, is that a party? Independent is a party?
People run on it.
Yeah, but nobody wins on the independent party.
Bernie Sanders
Is that a fact? Okay.
No, but he's a democratic socialist.
Whatever. Let's not get into names. But my point is, guys, my point is, imagine like this. Let's move from the Democratic Republican model to the following model, to husband and wife. What does your marriage look like? Is your marriage like the Republican and Democratic Party, in which you're really not talking to each other? You know, you have marriages, by the way, where he's a Republican and she's a Democrat, and they don't talk politics. You have parents.
That's what we have.
Oh, very good. And he's proud to share. Okay, good.
Absolutely.
So you have parents and children like that. They just don't talk about certain things. They just don't talk about it, right? But imagine if the couple would say like this: I know that you are very, very different to me ideologically, right? Maybe I'm very religious and maybe you're very, very irreligious, right? But let's come together in a shared safe space where there's harmony, there's compassion, there's empathy, there's mutual understanding without judgment. What would that look like? Now you have a marriage, right? Now you have a marriage, right? That's how they're able to live together. Some marriages are just coexistences. They're just roommates. But if you actually have a marriage where you have people that are different but talk to each other, that's the beauty of Tikkun. That is the world of Tikkun. You know what Tohu looks like? Divorce. Tohu is divorce. We have two people that say, I've had enough already, I'm out of here. That's the divorce. But if you're able to reconcile, if you're able to come together, marriage doesn't mean two people becoming the same. Marriage is not about one dominant and one recessive personality. That's control, that's abuse. Marriage is about the ability to respect someone who's different to you. That your timing and her timing are very, very different. I remember my marriage improved tremendously when I got a second car. It was a game-changing moment in my relationship because as long as we had one car, I was constantly frustrated about the timing of various events. But then I once we got a second car, I was like, you know what? You come whenever you want. No problem. I'm doing my thing. And that way I was like free. It was amazing. But being stuck in one car was extremely frustrating for me. It was very, very difficult, right? And sometimes you need these little hacks to be able to allow yourself the opportunity. But chaos is divorce. Tohu is divorce. And harmony, tikkun, is marriage, is because and when I say marriage, it doesn't mean that you happen to be filing taxes together. What it means is that you actually have conversations. I couldn't believe it. The other day I spoke to someone, told me that his wife and he don't go on dates. He and his wife don't date each other. And I was shocked. I was crestfallen. I said, what do you mean you don't date your wife?
I actually have it on my calendar.
You do?
And she has. Yeah, we have.
Good.
Mutual calendar.
You have to have a date with your wife. Hello, you have to date your wife, folks. Your spouse. Because remember, when you're dating before marriage, that's not a date. That's an interview. After marriage, it's about harmonizing. It's about creating tohu into tikkun. It's about channeling chaos into harmony. You have to have once a week, at least once a week, a time when you just hang out together. Key word being together. No with third party, no with another couple, right. Not at a movie because you're not doing movies. Movies is just mindlessness, right? What it means is you could be having a couple glass of wine together, taking a walk together. You could take a drive together. You go to a restaurant together. You got to do something together in order to be able to bring your marriage together. Otherwise, you're going to be like two ships.
But you're suggesting that dating is an event, like once a week.
Yes, I'm suggesting dating is an event.
Why can't the marriage be a
It's not realistic.
Why can't the marriage be an event?
That's not realistic.
You mean every moment?
Well, not every moment, but not. You don't save it up and say, "Oh, Friday."
Well,
night,
sir, I'm in a very
night,
different.
Miserable, or,
Right.
all week on
No,
Friday
no,
afternoon.
no,
Right.
no.
Look, Chuck, I'm very different to you. Okay, I'm coming from a house. Okay, where I have 11 children at home. Okay, for me, I have to
Well,
escape.
maybe that's okay.
I have to
understand
escape
that.
in order to. You're coming. You're living. You're retired. You're both home, right? That there's a different problem when you're like that, because then when you have each other all the time, you might climb up each other's nerves to the point that you need a break from each other. You might need the reverse date. I don't know. It's a different kind of relationship. Look, I can speak for myself. How's that? Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's a better way.
I can speak for myself. But I was talking to somebody my age with children.
Sure.
And
I can understand
and
that.
imagine he has like 7 kids.
I can
The guy's got like
understand
7 kids, and he's not dating his wife. I couldn't believe it. Like, what do you guys actually have in common other than co-parenting?
Our philosophy is very simple. I catch the fish, she cooks the fish. The only time we're together is when we eat the fish.
Okay, so you eat the fish together. It's very good. That's very good. You got to eat the fish together. But I want you to realize that just like Chris is telling me here, that 1 + 1 = 1. The goal of creation was to be able to take two things that are different and bring them together in one in harmony. Heaven and earth, and bring them together. Hashem Echad, God is one, right? So what that means is that we're supposed to take things that are different, like heaven and earth, godly soul and animal soul, spirituality and a physicality, holiness and money and make them one, right? In other religions, they make a very clear divide, an iron curtain between them. They say you're either rich or you're spiritual. You can't be both. I think in Christianity, in the Bible of theirs, it says that the rich man is a sinner. A Christian friend of mine told me that. I can't confirm that, but I heard that from a Christian friend. The rich man is a sinner, and that the holy man is celibate, because you can't be engaged in a physical world. In the Torah, it says exactly the other way around. In the Torah, it says you want to be holy, then you got to be able to bridge the gap between heaven and earth, between the godly soul and the animal soul, to take tohu and turn it into tikkun. Let's keep on going. Therefore, at the bottom of 232, therefore, to refine the sparks of tohu, the world of two columns, which fell into the sitra achra, the feet of the Tarmadai, is by elevating them to the level of tikkun, which has three columns represented by the three festivals. This is about infusing awareness of God into your life. How do you do this, guys? Let me explain to you in a marriage. So Chassidus tells us that the Hebrew word for man and woman, like every Hebrew word, contains its secret, contains its essence, contains its mysticism. So the Hebrew word for man and woman is exactly the same word, same letters. Ish and Isha. Ish, Isha. Aleph, Yud, Shin is the Hebrew for man, and Aleph, Shin, Hey is the Hebrew for woman, right? They have the same letters. Aleph and Shin is the two letters that they share. Aleph and Shin spells Esh, fire. And then the third letter of the man is a Yud, and the third letter of the woman is a Hey. Yud and Hey together, the extra letters, Yud and Hey together, spell the name of God. So man and woman, when together, are fire with God. What happens when man and woman eject God from the relationship? There's left fire, chaos. When God is ejected from the relationship, you're left with fire, meltdown, chaos, right? You might figure it out. You might be able to co-parent. You might be able to co-live together, to share a mortgage or share whatever. But in order to experience true harmony, it's coded into our being, you have to invite God into the relationship. And when you do that, then he's a man and she's a woman. They're different beings. They're not the same. They're not surrendered. They're not recessive. They're two different beings that learn to live together because there's a third party that brings them together. And that third party is God. And that's why the Talmud says that it takes three to make a baby. Mother and father to make the body, and God to create the soul. So let's apply this let's just go just a little bit further to finish this idea up. The Rebbe explains how this concept is expressed within the service of God. 233. Within one service of God, these three festivals refer to the three pillars upon which the world stands. The three festivals are Torah, prayer, and acts of kindness, which refers to all the mitzvahs. Torah, prayer, and acts of mitzvahs. These three pillars are the foundations of both the individual world of each Jew, who is the microcosm, a miniature world, and the physical world as a whole. The ethics of the fathers tells us that the world stands on three pillars, on Torah, prayer, and mitzvahs. Torah, prayer, and mitzvahs is what the world stands on. The physical world as well as your private individual world. The existence of the physical world, which is kept in existence through these three pillars, then supports the existence of the upper worlds as well. When you can have three strong pillars as the foundation of your life, Torah, prayer, and mitzvahs, that's when you have three. Remember, three is order, tikkun. Two is chaos, is tohu, as we just explained. So you have to introduce these three pillars of the pilgrimage festivals, which are Torah, prayer, and the mitzvahs, into your life, and thus you will be establishing order in your life. And this is the fulfillment of the Hanukkah lights. This is what we're learning in the Hanukkah discourse 9 months after Hanukkah. Why we do that? Because it's not just about Hanukkah. Hanukkah is just a directive. Hanukkah is telling us what we got to do the rest of the year, 360 something days, 356 days of the year that are not Hanukkah. What we're supposed to do is we're supposed to illuminate the darkness. How do you illuminate the darkness, the chaos of your own life? By introducing the three pillars of Torah, prayer, and mitzvahs. And I think I'm going to stop over here.